Welcome, everybody. We are back, your friends at the Legacy Wealth Capital Group.
We don't play that because it's like we don't care what's going on. We make it happen.
The office pretty much depended on us. If we didn't work, the office didn't work, basically. It couldn't function without us.
I think about like, what could we have done different?
And you could follow that model with your product.
Your service will not sell because people are going to feel that conversation. Welcome, everybody. We are back, your friends at the Legacy Wealth Capital Group. I got my partners, Sean and Kyle, here. How you guys doing today?
Great. Not bad at
Good.
all.
Good. How are you?
I am good. I need to go back in here on this other side and make us go live. Push the wrong button, so while the audience is coming in and getting settled, if you are listening in today, drop us a comment because this actual topic I want to have a little discussion around. I want to have a discussion around what you think you know, what you feel, because this is getting near and dear to me. And Sean, Kyle, I want to talk tonight about the difference between access to capital and raising capital. The thing that I hear the most when we look at incubators, accelerators, online conversations is always saying that we don't have access to capital. Businesses have no access to capital. And what they mean is they're not bankable. They're not getting loans from banks. They're not getting credit cards. And even if they talk about access to capital, they talk about it from a VC standpoint. Their venture capitalists aren't giving small businesses capital, but they never really talk about raising capital, which while there may be some similarities, there's differences. So I want to just go over that tonight, and then I'm gonna go on a rant. And I'm gonna let y'all know I'm gonna go on a rant at some point, maybe in the midpoint way. I'm just gonna go off on this tangent for this thing that's bothering me. But let's talk a little bit about your guys' definition of access to capital and then move into raising capital and some of those differences.
My personal opinion, I think everybody has some sort of access to capital, but it's all about being able to, raise the capital. I see, and if you look at it like this, right? What I mean by access to capital, if you do a regulation CF, right, and you promote your product, you market your product throughout the United States, right? That's a form of access. There's investors out there that you can get, and if they like your product, they can invest in your company. Same with the 506C, right? But raising capital is something totally different. And a lot of times you may get an investor on the phone and he may want to talk to you regarding your company. And what business owners tend to do is sell products instead of selling the investment opportunity. I mean, that's a common occurrence. They'll get on the phone, they'll tell them about the gadget, they'll tell them about how great it is and how much it costs and all this other stuff. But that's not going to invest. That's not really going to. It's not going to increase the investors' net worth. It's not going to invest and make the investors any money. What's going to make the investors money is pitching your company the proper way, telling him about the investment opportunity, and telling him about the exit strategy. So that's just what I feel about between the two.
Kyle, what you got?
Yeah. I believe, like I said, people do get it mixed up. But access to capital to me is okay. You can go to the bank. You can go to your credit cards. You can go to your 401k. That's access. Raising capital doesn't depend on your credit score. Okay, it doesn't depend on those type of requirements that you need for that. Again, bank's going to say how much money you got in the bank or whatever, or give me some collateral, something like that. Raising capital is having a great idea. What I like to say, it's got sizzle, and if it's got sizzle, somebody's going to buy into it, and they're going to want a ROI. So as long as you can put something together and it's going to create some sizzle, you should always be able to raise capital. Think about it. The richest man in the world is raising capital. Now, don't you think he's got access to capital?
100%.
There's a difference.
That's good, Kyle. And I see it from a perspective of, and I get it. And this is where everybody that's listening in, especially if you're a business owner and you're starting to think about capital in the business to help you grow and scale, you have to know the differences between your capital stacks. Meaning there's a place for banks, there's a place for credit, there's a place for bootstrapping, and then there's a place for going to investors. And our limited view is, well, going to investors means going to venture capital. And when venture capital is not interested in your business, that's just out of the window. But Sean just talked about you as a business owner being able to go directly to the source, which is the people, the investors, by Regulation CF, by Reg D 506C, by some other financial instruments, and pitch. You go to pitch competitions, but we're so used to pitching for a $10,000 grant, we've confused that with actually raising capital from investors. Kyle, we got some professional grant artists. I promise you. I was at an event last year in October, and this lady was like, I've won 10 pitch competitions or something like that. 7, 8 pitch whole room applauding. Why is that the measure? Because you can pitch well and you're getting $5,000 or $10,000 per pitch that does nothing for your business. Because if it did, you wouldn't have to pitch over and over and over and over again. And we haven't clicked that. I want to bring up, and I was going to share the screen and try to share the video. I ain't doing none of that. I was listening to Earn Your Leisure's podcast with the founder of the Shea products. Shea moisturizers, lotions, hair products. Butter, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Can't remember the guy's name, but he was talking about, exiting and selling to a bigger business. And then they asked him questions about being a sellout. You know how our community get. So for our white listeners, we're going to go into some minority business stuff a little bit. Hang on with us if you're listening. We want you here, but we got to go to our community for a moment. Because it is true, when a black business reaches a certain level, which very few do, and they sell or exit, they call it a sellout. And we can't, and the question on Earn Your Leisure was, well, how can we leave generational wealth or generational businesses if we sell them? And the guy's answer was, well, generational wealth ain't just money. It's knowledge of how to create a business, how to create something that's lasting, and how to pass that on, as well as the money that you get from the exit. So we forget about that. And they asked him, well, why aren't black businesses growing faster? Why don't we have more $100 million businesses? Why don't we have more public businesses? And he said that he doesn't know the answer to all those questions, but he did bring up access to capital. And in his term, he was talking clearly about going to raise capital from investors. He wasn't talking about bank money, because he went into the whole story of how he helps businesses and how they invest in businesses, and how only, I think they said it's down to like less than 0.5% of VC money go to black businesses. So as a black business then, and we shouldn't get so hung up on that, but even if we're there, you got to start taking your destiny into your own hands. Sean, I want you to talk a little bit about taking your destiny in your own hands, because when we had a video posted, somebody said it was weird to want to take your company public, and we shouldn't be trying to do that because our businesses don't get value like their businesses. And you told them, who told you that lie? So go into that a little bit for us.
Well, it's almost like this, right? Numbers don't lie, people do. And a lot of times people will make comments on something that they are not familiar with. And they will give their opinion on something they don't even know nothing about. They've never done it before. So, from when I told that guy, that he, who told you that lie, but it's because it's always, well, I heard it from someone else, but that someone else has never raised capital in their life either. And there's different type of raises. If I'm raising a capital, let's say I have a real estate business and I'm doing fix and flips. If I can raise capital in let's say Charlotte, North Carolina, or I can raise capital. Well, excuse me, I can raise capital and do construction in Charlotte, North Carolina, do the fix and flips, or I can raise capital and start different divisions all over the country and do fix and flips. That's two different valuations.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, what people do is they'll do a local job or a small job thinking, man, I can never get to $1 billion valuation. I can never get there. Well, we tell you all the time, the best way to get your valuations up is through acquisitions. It's not onesies and twosies. Yes, customer sales matter. But if if I had a choice to pick trying to do 20 million sales and buy a company that's going to give me $20 million in revenues, I would pick buying that company every day. And a lot of people just don't understand that. So when I say who told you that lie, it's because he doesn't understand. He's never done it before.
Yeah, I was sharing with a guy today I did a podcast with just the pathway of going public because he was like, man, I've been around venture capital, but you don't hear many people talk about going public. And it's like this elusive thing that we just don't understand enough to believe that we can do it. Yet I'm still going back to the same thing. You will buy stock from another company and help that company grow, but you won't build your own company for people to be able to invest in you and buy stock or buy shares and then turn public, buy stock in your company. We just won't do it. Kyle, another thing that he mentioned was as a black business, once you start to get so far and you do grow, you're taking shelf space from the big dogs, the L'Oreals, the all of those companies. And he's like, there's no emotion. They just have people every day that's making sure that they stay on top. And so when you begin to threaten them, a couple of things happen. They buy you out. They take the shelf space back, or they cut their price and they just outcompete you and run you out of business. So when they do come to you and they like, okay, we want to buy you, then it makes sense because you can't compete. You don't have the billions of dollars to compete with them. You haven't been around for 100 years to compete. It makes sense to sell or to create a partnership. And so, Kyle, when you think about as a minority owned business, when you guys went public as a minority owned, publicly traded utility company, what was your mindset around being able to actually do it with all the big dog telecommunication companies that were around? What made you even think that, we can be successful at this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I probably was so naive, and we were so eager and so hungry to get it done that we didn't listen to anybody. You know, we didn't let anybody tell us that it couldn't be done. So I remember one time, the guys at Wachovia called me in and sat me down at the boardroom, and they looked at my background and my biography, and they said, "Well, we just want to know. We want to ask some questions like, how did you go public? We're looking at your bio, and we're looking at this, and we just don't understand. Like you didn't go to Wharton School of Business, or you didn't go to Harvard or Duke." And I looked at them, and I'm like, like you guys are all degreed up, you know what I mean? And y'all don't know nothing. I'm a hustler. And that's what I said to him, in the room. I said, "Did you guys read the book? Why should white guys have all the fun?" And they looked at me and they were like, I said, "Look, Reginald Lewis, he broke it down. Do you realize that was the biggest reverse merger in history at the time? And it was done by a black man and nobody even knew it." And they were just baffled and blown away. So, when I read that book, Nobody couldn't tell me nothing because if you can conceive it, you can achieve it. And because Reginald Lewis cracked the ceiling and he did it, I knew we had an opportunity to be able to do it. But I can say this. Um, Unfortunately, and that's why I said I love my partner, Sean, and now you're part of this family too, Tyrus. But both of us, all of us are military people.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that's probably where I got that determination from, every time I stepped out there on the flight line, there was nothing on that aircraft I didn't think I couldn't fix. And it was like, I mean, this is going to get fixed. I'm not coming back until it's fixed, or I'm staying here until it's done. And now we just took that type of, um, barada, barada, whatever you want to call it, and we put it in business. And we do the same exact thing. Look, whatever it is, we're going to challenge whatever comes, any obstacle. We're going to get through it, over it, around it, above it, below it, but we're going to get it done.
Yeah. The other thing that was in that interview, and while I like the platform and I love the platform that Earn Your Leisure has built, I feel personally that it doesn't go far enough. And maybe that's where they need to be. Maybe they need to be in the sparking of the conversation, get people thinking, and then somebody else takes it further. But I was listening to the gentleman that they had on, and he was talking about building the ecosystems and having, he was like, one person can't do this alone. You need 100 people, 200 people, all doing this and working together. That's another thing that's missing. Because here's the thing right here where if Rashad and Troy and their partner, I forget his name, if they can hear this, and they may have, I don't watch every single episode they put out, I don't listen to every clip they do. But when you're having a guy like this on that platform, and then you talk about, well, Facebook got, I think, fined of what, $1 billion, something like that, for taking people's data. Apple stuff breaks, but we don't stop buying Apple. Nobody deleted Instagram. Why don't they mention fan base? If
Right.
there's a true question of why are we still using these platforms versus using our, we could continuously talk about being the talent and not having ownership. John O'Brien talks about it. I heard Magic Johnson talking about it on a podcast with the guy from A16Z, talking about ownership and not just being talent. We keep talking about that. But then when you have somebody who has created something, fan base, another social media platform, we're not on it. We're not pushing our resources to it. He did raise capital, 17 million on a regulation A. So he raised the capital from investors himself. Where's the support at? Where is the community support? And then I was listening to another guy that was on John O'Brien's podcast, and he was talking about being a doctor and going into private equity. And he was like, nobody told me I couldn't. I knew how to get around the money and how to do this. How can more of us get in this world? So Sean, I want to push that question to you.
Well, you know what? But real quick, before you
Go
do that,
for it.
um, I believe there's something out there, and I believe that stigma is still on us from the time of slavery,
Yeah.
and it's the Willie Lynch. And basically, they've taught us not to trust one another. So, like you said, why isn't fan base getting that, that boost, like Apple or Microsoft or whatever? You know what I mean? They've taught us how to, light versus dark, good hair versus nappy hair. So we would rather basically look at somebody else. And we were growing up the pictures of the little babies with the little kids with the doll babies. And this is, oh, this is the good baby, but that's the bad baby. Why? Because it's black. A black child is saying that black baby is bad. It's that stigma that's still on us today. It's a generational. We're talking about generational wealth. Well, it's a generational curse on us because that generational wealth, you got to understand, for us, broke begot broke. So how far back are we going to generational wealth? One family? You know what I mean? You talking
Yeah.
about the Vanderbilts, you're talking about the Rothschilds, you're talking about the Rockefellers. You know what I mean? That's generational. We can't even begin to talk about generational wealth because what we're probably seeing is the first generation
Yep.
of wealth. So it's going to take some time for us to actually start trusting one another to get together because we think that, oh man, good, we're good to go. Think about it. Us as a people, we've got the gross national product. We're ninth in the world for gross national, for as far as what? Consuming. But no one has taught us how to basically come together to form this pot.
That's good. Sean, before I kick it over to you, I was talking to my kids today about, we weren't designed to be just consumers. You were designed to produce, to
Yeah.
build, and you will never be fulfilled, never be complete if you just consume, if you don't build and produce, if you don't go forth and make something better and add value, you will never be fulfilled. And to your point, Kyle, they mentioned that I can't remember this guy's name, but I think he was actually, they felt like John Hope Bryan said that he kind of got overshadowed because he was coming up during the time of Reginald Lewis. And so Reginald Lewis was the name,
Mhm.
but this guy was also building at that time, and he's still here. And so they were talking about that, but he said the same thing is like we are just seeing the first generation of wealth. Your
Mhm.
Magic, your LeBron, your Jay-Z, your Jordan, Tiger Woods, even though he's getting bad press right now. But our first Oprah Winfrey, our first core set of billionaires, Robert F. Smith, and then multi millionaires. And I'm not talking about the millionaires with the gold chains that they may have 5, 10 million. I'm talking about the 20, 40, 50 millionaire, multi-millionaires that are in our community. So to your point, Kyle, you said the same thing that they said. We haven't even had an opportunity to pass wealth to the second generation yet, really. Like there's been money passed, there's been land passed, but the knowledge of wealth and creation and the whole fulfillment of the next line in line hasn't happened yet. So coming to you, Sean, there's access to capital happening and there's capital raising that needs to happen. But how do we now take this next generation and keep building? What do we do?
Right. That's a good question. I just want to kind of go back to Reginald Lewis real quick. Was he was a billionaire, right?
Yeah.
So he acquired 64 companies underneath his belt in like nine or 12 countries. I forgot. 64 companies under his belt. And he was in like either 9 or 12 countries. Remember, I said earlier that acquisitions is one of the best way to grow your company. This guy became a billionaire off of 64 companies. And getting back to the one guy that made the comment on Facebook, what's that company name? It's called Christian. Is it
Christian Dior.
No, Christian Lutini or something, or Lu
Oh, the
something?
Louis Vuitton. I know them
You know what I'm
shoes.
talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
With the
yeah.
red bottoms.
Right, red box.
So he started off in Paris with a boutique. He had, small. It wasn't really that big. And what happened was, he went out and started looking for investors. Ferrari, the owners of Ferrari, invested 450 euros in his company, 450 million euros in his company for 24%. And that's what launched him into the Nordstroms and stuff like that. So to say it's impossible, he's a French Egyptian, kind of, he's about your complexion, maybe my complexion. To say that we don't have the same opportunities or they're going to value us less or whatever, I don't believe in that. I believe we have the same opportunities, sometimes better opportunities. But I don't believe that. I think if it's done right and you raise capital right and you get in bed with the right people, you can get where you need to go.
That's good.
Yeah, you can get
You
where you
lead
need
me.
to go.
You lead me right into my next point because you said getting in bed with the right people. They were asking the questions in these different podcasts because I listened to three different ones: Magic and that guy, Earn Your Leisure, and the other guy, John Hope Bryan, and then the gentleman that he was talking to, and they were all talking about access. A guy told me one time, a real estate guy, a friend of mine, I was like, man, I don't know the right people. And he was like, it ain't all about who you know, it's about who knows you.
Yeah,
And so getting in the room when Magic first wanted to start investing, he went to Jerry Buss because he was that was the boss.
Hmm.
He went to him, he introduced him to another guy. He said when they were in Los Angeles and he met with this guy, first he didn't want to deal with him. He made him wait. And I was talking to my wife, I'm like, man, he made Magic Johnson wait. But that's different levels.
Yeah.
This guy's sitting in a whole different world. Sports and athletic, all that don't mean nothing to them. So he was like, when he finally called him back and he had dinner, they went to some restaurant. I can't remember which one, but his seat was in the middle of the room. And he's like, and everybody came up and kissed the guy ring. Like he was the man, but he made introductions. And so sometimes we need the right introduction in the right place at the right time and then be prepared. See, Magic was prepared. When he got there, he was prepared to actually execute on the introduction. A lot of us want to be in the room, but we just excited to be in the room. And that's what this other guy said on John O'Brien's podcast. He was like, a guy told him, don't be happy just because you're in the room.
Hmm.
Like, why are you in there? What's the purpose of being in there? And
yeah,
that's where I feel, again, Earn Your Leisure takes them, maybe they take them to a certain place, and maybe it's for somebody else to take them further. But we're too happy just to be in the room with music, food, and
gotta close.
entertainment.
Gotta close.
Right.
I want to interject real quick, right? And I love that you said that, Tyrus, because I remember when we had our phone company, right? One of our investors introduced us to the Archbishop of all the AME Baptist churches. He's right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, off of Betty Ford. So we went over there, we met with him. He gave us permission to use his name to speak to all the AME Baptist churches across the country. We had another investor. He was going to introduce us to was it the bishop or of the Catholic? What was it, the archdiocese?
Catholic diocese, yeah.
He was going to introduce us to them. So then we would have had access to all the Catholic churches and we would be able to use his name. We would go in his name, basically, his recommendation. So not only are investors great for your company as far as giving you dollars, but a lot of times these guys are powerful and they know the right people who can take you even further. So I love what you say, Tyrus. I love the comment. And that's 100%. I agree 100% with that.
Kyle, you want to add in on that?
Yeah, I mean, um, think about this. What were we told when we were little? Think about that. Like, have you ever seen that show Billions?
I know what I was told.
I love Billions.
Right, you love Billions, right? And did you
Oh,
see
that's
the
a
way
good
the
one.
dad treats the little boys? Now think about what were we told when we were little?
I know what I was told. I
What,
was told go
when
to
you
go to
when you got
school,
some money,
finish high school, and get a
right,
job.
and get a job. Nobody in my family ever said start a business.
Nope.
But guess
Yep.
what? When I was young, I was selling cards. I sold a brush to my girlfriend, who now is my wife. She bought a brush with Fuller brush. E.B. Fuller. I have Fuller brush. And I got it out of what? Like an Ebony Junior magazine. And I filled out something in the back. I was selling. I had a newspaper route. I was selling. But guess what? Nobody in my family was a seller. Nobody sold anything. And again, my mom always said to me, look, baby, when you get your check, take a portion of it, give your 10% to the Lord. And after that, take some more and put it in the bank. My mother never told me to invest. My father never said to invest. But guess what? When I started my paper route, guess who told me to invest? The people where I had to get my papers from. Now, I don't even have a
Owners.
relationship with these people. I don't know these folks. And they said, okay, now, Kyle, it's going to cost you 15 cents per paper. And you're going to sell them for 30 cents. That's where I learned how to invest from the newspaper people. And I would gather my papers, fold them up, get on my bike, roll through the neighborhood. And then after that, I sold my route to another person, to my god brother. Nobody taught me how to sell. So all I was doing was selling. So now guess what? What's my skill level of sales? I don't have a skill set. I just know I enjoy selling. I like the feeling it gives me. It's kind of like for young people now looking at Facebook. But for me, selling something, that's where I get my adrenaline's flowing or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what makes me feel good. But nobody in my, not my mother, not my father, not my uncles, nobody showed me or told me that. So guess what? So the first generation of wealth in our family is right here.
As we continue down that conversation, this pathway, and as always, when these podcasts and these things end or as they wrap up, they never really leave the definitive of what to do next. It's always like we got a lot of work to do. And I feel like that message is becoming played out. So I want to give a kind of a walkthrough of my idea of what can be done or what should be done. And people can agree with it and they can disagree with it. We'll love to hear it because at least we be having dialogue. A lot of people just disagreeing and sitting on the log and ain't doing nothing. I think number one, we need to think about group economics seriously, not just talking about it. And when I say group economics, if you have been to a venture capital company, if you have been to a bank, if you have been to or went or applied for a credit card and you've been denied, that should trigger you to say, how can I get this thing that I want? And how do I raise the capital versus begging for access to capital? We too used to knocking on the door and begging somebody else to build it for us instead of us building for ourselves. Now, I understand the history. I know that we're capable because right after the Civil War and freed slaves and during that Reconstruction period, we had a height of wealth and prosperity in our own communities. So I know it's possible. We got to get back there. We got to get back just like every other community. And I want to say this clear. Just because a community supports itself doesn't mean that it's racist. Naturally, you're going to support who looks like you first. White communities, they're going to support themselves. Irish community, Chinese community, Korean community, Arab community, Muslim community. They're going to support the Jewish community. Just like that, we need to support ourselves. And then you build the larger and broader ecosystem because to Sean's point, you won't scale if you don't go global. You'll reach a certain point, but when you're talking about being $1 billion company, you have to be global. You have to create partnerships. You have to reach out to other groups. But first, you got to be a strong group. Once we can create that group economics, take that spending power that we have and turn it into investing power, then we have our own venture capital firms. Then we have our own private equity groups. And yes, we do have them. They do exist, but they're all so small. And when I say small, they're the guy that was on John Brown, I think he has $1 billion assets under management. That's a lot, but it ain't BlackRock.
It's pennies.
Pennies. It ain't BlackRock.
It's pennies.
So we got to build to where we can have our own things and our own relationships and our own partnerships. You know a name they kept calling on all of these different podcasts I was listening to? Michael Milken.
Right.
We need our own names to be calling. Like they were all calling Michael Milken, going to his conference, his event, being a part of that ecosystem. But we can build our own ecosystem, still be a part of his, but we can build our own ecosystems and help grow our own businesses. That's number one. Number two, we got to learn, Kyle, how to be cooperative to each other. Despite what you think, we let everything get in between one another. Well, I don't like this and I don't like that. And they from the north and I'm from the south and I don't like the food and I don't like the family. A whole bunch of not likes. I learned growing up in South Alabama that people didn't have to like people to get the job done.
Exactly.
I'm not trying to be your friend. This is business. Let's build. And then number three, now that we can start to build our own banks, our own funds, raise our own capital, we can begin to invest in our own businesses and then grow and scale those businesses and partner with each other. Now, again, Kyle, you say this all the time. Sean, you guys say this. When we look at our billionaire athletes, none of them are publicly traded, but they're partners with all kind of publicly traded companies. I am glad now that we're at least seeking ownership instead of just being talent and getting a paycheck. Because Magic said that a lot of times businesses would come to him just for the face, for advertising. It's like, you know, the network, how deep the Rolodex is, that I can do so much more. So I think the last step that I want to push out there for us is to think about brand equity and partnership and not just likes and clicks and being in front of something from a celebrity standpoint. You got to get out of trying to be a celebrity and be an actual business owner and an investor. What do you guys think? What are some things that you guys think that we need to do in order to build our businesses and get on a level playing field? Can Isaac Hayes III get fan base to a Facebook status? What would he have to do? How should we support? And how can we do that for other businesses as well?
Yeah, well, real quick, that young lady just said she loves this conversation. And I didn't get her name. It's like Shermaid or Charade.
That's
Shermaid.
Sadiq. Sadiq gonna get you.
Okay, so I'm loving this conversation. But yeah, if that's Sadiq, all right, make sure you pass this on in your social media. Everybody on here, tell them what's going on right now. Send that link out to everybody so they can get in and hear what we're saying. Because that right there, I know Sadiq. What's up, Sadiq? But yeah, get that out because again, that's where it starts. Like right now, we need to tell everybody about Isaac Hayes III. No, we don't get any commission from it. We're not getting anything from it. But guess what? That brother put something together, raised $17 million on the products that we're talking about that we've created to be able to help people out. And again, 12,000 investors. And this is the one thing that I want to say about it. Basically, like I said, when I was in Japan, I remember this is what I was told. I was in Japan, I was in the store, and they told me, they said that basically, because I'm looking for what products? Something from the United States, right? But they told me that in Japan, the Japanese people, if they see American products on there, they will buy the Japanese product, even if it's more expensive, just to
100%.
support Japan. That's what they'll do, even just to. And I was like, what? But what about if don't take? It doesn't matter. They know right now, buy Japanese. The Jewish dollar stays in the Jewish community 7 times, rotates 7 times in there. And people are saying, why can't that happen in the black community? Because guess what? In the black community, the businesses there, the liquor store, we don't own that.
Check cashing.
Check cashing place, we don't own that. So what stores, what bank systems, what financial institutions are in the hood? Food Lion, we don't own that. Giant Penny, we don't own that. Shopping Bag, we don't own that. So how are we going to have a community that says where the dollar rotates multiple times? We don't have that in our community. So it's not possible. Where we're going to go, Metro PCS, Cricket, what we're going to do? We don't own any of those. What's the other one? What's the other? You got Cricket, you got Metro, and what's the other one? The famous that I forgot. Boost.
I don't know. Yeah, Boost Mobile.
Right. All of those that are in our community, we don't own any of those. The 7-Eleven, we don't own it. The gas station, we don't own it. If we do, it's probably it could be either my African brothers or it could be my Arabic brothers. But other than that, how long is that dollar going to stay in our community? It's not going to stay there at all.
Even a lot of the restaurants too. A lot of
Yeah.
Chinese restaurants are in there.
in our community.
It's not even real Chinese food. They call it Chinese. It's not. I went to. It's a funny story. I went to Hong Kong looking for. I'm so embarrassed to say this. Looking for like shrimp fried rice and orange chicken and stuff. It was like, oh, that's American. That's not here.
The guy that started PF Chains, he created orange chicken, and he said that he was like that. We don't do that.
No, we don't do
That's
that.
a here thing.
Yeah,
Right.
they have stuff on the menu I never even heard of before.
French
Yeah.
fries ain't French.
Yeah, I went to a Chinese restaurant when I was in Korea. It was in Seoul, and nothing on the menu that I recognized. Period. I was like, I don't like none of this. I'm looking for the regular stuff. It was nothing like what we like. But Kyle, to your point, we got to bring back ownership, and it at this point in the game. And I love John Hope Bryant for spreading this message to financial literacy and stop blaming. It ain't stop looking at the color and look at the economics and do it. Just like when Sean responded to that guy, it's weird to want to take your company public. You shouldn't want to take your company. Why? Like people don't even qualify their statement. They just say it's weird. Why? Okay, you got an opinion. Why is it weird? Have you tried to take a company public? Do you understand what it means to take a company public? Do you know the life-changing event that can be? If not, why is it weird? Now, should every single company go public? Probably not. But just to say it's weird with no qualification, what does that really mean? For us to be able to pull 5,000 people in an event room and get all hype about business and then don't go out and move the numbers in business, what are we doing?
Right.
What are we doing? At some point, we got to get like, we love to dress up and go to an event, and they love to do these black parties, white parties, all this kind of stuff. Are you doing business? They mad at the guy that started the gathering spot. I forget his name. I don't know him, don't know his name, but I know they hot at him because he got on I think it was Social Proof Podcast with David Shands and just talked about the numbers of how many millionaires are in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Small number, but everybody on social media a millionaire. He was like, the math don't math. The math ain't mathing. And he a hater. When is being truthful being a hater? If you don't get, I'm not interested in being flashy. I want to leave generational wealth and build something that I can pass on to my children's children. I do want to have my own fancy this or that here. I want to do a nice vacation. I might want to do first class on my vacation, but I'm not interested in showing up at an all white party just so I can walk around and people think that I look a certain way and I don't really have it. I don't know who said, but a $5,000 purse with $5 in it.
Right.
Like, what are we doing?
I'd rather have a brown bag with 5,000 in it.
So I'm gonna go back to y'all. We got off of it, but what are some things that you feel like we can do as not even just as us as a people, but beyond that, as business owners, as investors, as people who want to create wealth and live a lifestyle that doesn't have to be flashy, but the opportunity? Because another thing they said, I'm gonna turn it over to you guys, was John Hope Bryant, the guy was like, we've been broke before and we've had money before. At any stage, you're still gonna have problems, but I'd rather have problems and have money than to have problems and don't have no money.
Exactly. Go ahead, Kyle. You could go.
Okay. It starts in the school system. It starts, think about it, higher learning. What does that mean? Higher learning, basically the illumination, and I'm not talking about the Illuminati or whatever, but I'm talking about the illumination of higher thought process. It needs to be taught in HBCUs. They need to be taught, entrepreneurship. It needs to be taught in, when I was growing up, we had the CETA program. You got to remember that. The bologna sandwiches with the apple, you know what I'm saying, back in the day. Y'all don't remember that, going to camp or whatever, stuff like that. But things that I learned in the Cedar program, about Benjamin Banneker and, creating a clock and stuff like that. I didn't even learn that in public school. I went to the Cedar program, learned summer programs, teaching. At our church, we got tech camp where, we teach kids about technical and coding and stuff like that. It all starts there. We can't think that we're going to grab a group of older people right now and think we're going to, boom, all of a sudden put this in. It ain't going to happen like that.
Yeah.
It's going to start grassroots. And once you're in their grassroots, that's when it's going to kick off.
Yeah, I believe it starts in school, but I also believe it starts at home. I didn't know this stuff. I didn't learn nothing about investments. My mother didn't know nothing about investments. I learned it from a British guy in the military. And I saw him reading the paper because this is a long time ago, back when we was looking at papers and stuff, or we had papers. We didn't really have no social media or no. Wait a minute, I don't even think we had. Like online. It was like
I doubt
it. Before $36, $30, whatever you call it, right? And he was looking at this paper, and I would always watch him. Like, why is this guy religiously looking at this paper? So I was then I followed up behind him one day, and I saw he was looking at securities, and he was looking at mutual funds, and I was too scared to ask him in front of everybody else because I thought they was going to laugh at me. So I caught him one night. He explained to me everything about it, told me which books to read. So that's how I got my start. But I think it starts at home. I remember a while ago, I forget the amount. I don't know if it was $1 million, 250,000, 500, whatever. But I brought a check home, and I showed my kids the amount of the check. And they was like, "Man, you're rich, Dad." I said, "No, I'm not rich. This is company money. This is an investor sent me money to grow my company. So now I'm going to put this money into my company, and hopefully Dad one day will, make a lot of money off of this company." And then I explained to him that investors will give you, if you have a pretty good product, don't have to be exceptional, but if you have an okay product with some sizzle, with some potential, investors will give you money to help grow your company, and you can become a millionaire, possibly a billionaire from it. So I told him this back in this had to be either early 2000s or late 90s. And I remember I was talking to my daughter and my son. And I told him, I said, "Listen, no matter what you do in life, a lot of times you're not going to want to do it. I don't want to get up early in the morning every day. I don't want to do some of the stuff I do, but I do it because of the process, right? You have to establish a system. You have to establish, some days you're going to be in pain and you're not going to want to do anything. And I was trying to read the comments. Sorry about that. Some days you're not going to want to do anything.
Make it.
But you have to move forward because people are going to get on your nerves, but you got to believe every day that it's your opportunity. Today is your chance, because a lot of times when you least expect it, something great will happen to you. Something great will happen in your company. And that, and I always say there's a thin line, right? If you have a line, you have a little bit this way. If you go positive a little bit, that's the difference between you and your company, being multi-million-dollar, $100 million company, and going below that line and you're going out of business and you're losing money, you're going out of business. It's a thin line. All you need to do is cross that line and keep it in a positive space, and your company can be doing great things, and it could be life-changing for you. So, yeah, I talk about life and the company with my kids, and so they understand when they get in my position, when they get older, they can be better than me. Last thing I want to say is I always tell my kids to be better than me. I told my daughter, I said, "You're 22 years old." I told my son, I said, you are 14 years old. By the time you're 25, you can be multimillionaire, but you got to focus. You cannot be running the streets, messing with these girls, getting your mind off the prize. Because if you come to me and you say, Dad, well, what do you think about this? I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you get there because I want you to be better than me. I don't want you to be like me. I don't want you to be raised like me and come up like me. I want you to be better. And that's why I provide the life for them that they have now. And that's why, I talk to them a lot regarding the business, capital raising, investors, stocks and bonds and everything else. So just wanted to kind of say that, but I believe it starts at home too. I believe it earlier starts at home.
Yeah, and I would think, you know, I don't get me wrong. I love my dad. He taught me how to be a good husband, taught me how to be a good father. You know what I mean? Taught me how to be a good individual. But one thing my father didn't teach me is how to create wealth, and I can't blame him for that because his father didn't teach him. You know what I mean? His
Yeah.
father died when he was young, so my dad basically ended up being, he was the oldest son, and he had to be the breadwinner in the family. And so again, I take nothing away from him for that, but I learned basically wealth through my first mentor, who was a Filipino gentleman, and basically he had an insurance company. I went over there, and that's the first time I saw real wealth. I mean, he had two Mercedes Benz. I was like, what? This guy has two Mercedes Benz? And I'm like, man, this he must be rich. You know what I mean? He lived in Escondido. He had basically he lived in Spanish Trails and had a pool in the backyard. I'm like, wow. And every year he bought a home. Every year in San Diego, he bought a home. He owned like 9 different homes or whatever. And I remember, I said, all of this with this little bitty insurance office. And he said, Kyle, basically all we do is we go out and we show people. And we had this program. It was called the 100 Man Story. You can take a look. You can look at it on YouTube or whatever. But it was called the 100 Man Story. And to this day, that still is getting out there. And basically the 100 Man Story. But that's how we sold insurance. But I remember, he was making, $30,000 a month. And so here it is. I'm going to school in the military. I got TA assistant. I'm going to school. Basically, I want to become an officer, and I'm studying aviation management, right? And I'm like, man, okay, good. Once I finish, and they told me once you graduate college, you're going to be able to get $60,000 a year.
Rich.
And I was like, a year? I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. My man over there, he's doing $33,000 a month. Where are those jobs at? I had to go back over there and guess what? Get my insurance license because nobody is going to pay you what you're worth. So only thing that happens, and again, don't get me wrong, because guess what? My son's got a college degree. He graduated cum laude or whatever it is. My daughter's got her master's degree, and she's doing her thing, whatever. Both of them are doing well, and here it is. I quituated.
Quit you waited.
I mean, I graduated, Lord have mercy, but never graduated. Guess what? Never finished schooling. And that's why I know exactly Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and all of them dropping out. I understand that. But my kids got college degrees, but I wanted to make sure, hey, look, you guys got a college degree, but guess what? In order for you to get into the family riches, you got to get your insurance license.
That's good. Now, I do want to, for all the people that's listening to Kyle, and they was like, well, maybe we should drop out of school. Make sure you do what you do, but have a plan. See, Kyle had a plan. He had somewhere to go. He had an idea. He saw something. He had that. When Mark Zuckerberg and all them guys dropped out of those different universities, Harvard, Stanford, they already got what they went for: the network,
Right.
the access,
Right.
the room. So,
But I
whatever
think
decision you
Cyrus,
make,
I think now though college is a lot easier. It's not like when Kyle and I was coming up, we had to actually go to class, you know.
yeah,
And now you're able to attend online classes. I mean, I'll get my master's in August, and I did online classes forever. Seemed like, and I'm thinking about going to get the doctors, but I don't know yet. But it's a lot. I think it's a lot easier now to get your degree and stuff because of the online classes.
yeah, it is. I consider going back and getting a PhD or getting a doctor's in business administration, but then I was like, I'm with Kyle. For what?
I'm with Cal too. I think I'm with Cal too.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a doctorate degree. It's gonna be an honorary doctorate.
I could go on a whole rant about the honorary doctorate degree. I don't want to step on nobody's toes that got one. I just don't want one. I don't want one.
I
Don't
know
give
Cal
me,
said, "Oh, you could, Sean, you could get an operations doctor degree. You know what we're gonna be doing." I was like, "Huh, interesting. Yeah,
you can. You start to make these changes, and then they'll give you all this honorary stuff. I can't do it. I know the effort that people put in, the dissertation, the defending it. I just know the level of work that it takes to get one, and I know that if you do levels of work outside, that's a different work. I had to separate them, but to land this plane for the people, we were talking about accessing capital versus raising capital. Accessing the capital or having access to capital to me sometimes feels like you are asking somebody for permission. Bank, I'm in this fundability stage of my business. Can I have some money? Credit card company, can I have some money? Is this a wise decision for me to pull this money out of my 401k? Should I pull a HELOC out on my house and tie my house up into it and have a second lien or a second mortgage? Versus raising capital is going and showing that you believe in something, you have a vision, you have something that has sizzle, you have something that you believe is going to make change, impact, and earn a lot of money. What do you want to do, investor? Okay, great. Let me try you out. And so, as business owners, we need to start thinking about raising capital versus just accessing capital. For all of you that run incubators and accelerators, I need you to call us so you can put our program in your program because you're taking them so far. I sit on a lot of panels. None of you talk about raising capital. It's just what it is. I haven't sat on a panel yet. I've sat on many panels with banks, though. Bank representatives, loan officers, commercial bankers. Never one that has some, oh, I'm the person that's talking about raising capital, and everybody look confused. But if you're running these programs and you're helping businesses grow and scale, and you don't have a capital conversation about investors, you need to give us a call because this is the level of when we talk about changing business, this is how we make the change. This is how we get access. This is how we open up doors to different rooms. This is how we create awareness around you can actually do this. You can raise capital. You can take your company public, and you can do it all without having to have a great credit score, all without having to have all the tools and pieces figured out for the bank. Again, bank capital has its place, but it's not the only place. And that's what we have to start learning. So as we wind it out, I want you guys to make sure that you go to capitalraisingacademy.com. As a matter of fact, I want you to go to webinar.capitalraisingacademy.com and listen to how Sean and Kyle took their company public. Listen to how they raised the capital. Listen to the conversations that they had, the pitch deck that they had, the financial instrument that they had, the pieces to the puzzle, and watch how they put it together to do something that very few minorities have ever done. Kyle, when y'all took y'all company public, what, there was 9 minority?
14 back then.
14. Today is what? 7, 8,
Yep.
6? It's declining every day. They said that 0.34, maybe 0.5% of minority businesses raise or receive capital from venture. Why are you still going to venture then? Create your own. Raise capital on your own. That's what, and I think, and I'm going to get off of it and then we'll get out of here. Webinar.capitalraising.com. People think venture capital and bank is their money. They raising the capital from investors too. They the middleman. They're raising the capital. They're putting it in a fund. And then they lend it into you. The bank is raising capital. The bank owner may put in 20%, 10%, and then they lend in the money to you. So We're just telling you that you can do exactly what they're doing. Private equity raises the capital and goes out and buys businesses with it. You can raise capital just like they can raise capital using the same exemptions that they use to raise capital, using pitch decks to raise capital, getting into rooms to raise capital. You are no different from these other companies that you are asking to access capital from. You should be raising that capital yourself. Last thing.
Quick question, Tyrus. Quick question. Let's say a person is doing a CF, regulation CF, and they have a marketing plan. How many people is that reaching a day? Do you know? Approximately. Let's say you're doing, you're marketing, pretty good numbers and stuff. What is approximately how many people is it reaching, potential investors?
Depending on your budget, your ad budget, if you're spending the higher amounts, like what we looked at, the 50K a month, 100K a month, you can do 1 million impressions, hundreds of thousands of impressions of people seeing your ad to go to your page, to the portal page or the broker dealer page to invest in your company.
So imagine if hundreds of thousands, if you think you have something with sizzle out there, if you think you have something that's great, best thing since sliced bread, why not put it in front of hundreds of thousands of people? That it doesn't make sense to me. People just try to go to a bank and get the 10, 20, 30,000s, put your house up, PG out, PG up, PG your house, personal guarantee your house. And with the risk of your business going out of business. When investors, that's why they are in the game, for the risk. But they understand that there's a lot of, with the risk, there's reward, Exactly. But in order to get 100, 200,000 people looking at your product, and that could be the difference between you getting, millions of dollars in funding in 6 months or less or whatever. Why wouldn't you do it? That's the question I want to ask. Why would you not do it?
That's another part. Man, you want me to keep this thing going all night. Think about this, Sean. And this is something I want to do. I know of two, maybe three other companies that are doing this on a smaller scale. But they all think about or thinking of doing it on a larger scale. Think about the Rec CF. Now think about Shark Tank. Now, can you imagine being on ABC with your own show? All these businesses have Rec CFs, and they're not depending on just the 4 or 5 sharks investing in their business, but they got millions of people watching. And those millions of people can invest in their business. Why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't a show, somebody tag ABC or whoever runs Shark Tank, why wouldn't you put that on national TV? To bring businesses who have the ability to raise that. How many businesses are max out that $5 million raise every night? For the investors to be able to hear a quick pitch, then go to the portal page, read all the information, do your due diligence, and decide if you want to invest in that company. And we're not talking about Sean Kyle giving up 20%, 10%, 15%. We're talking about giving up a small amount because individuals can invest at $300, $500, $200, and you can raise millions. That's my goal. I'm trying to sit up on a panel, be an investor, but also bring it to the world. See, that now creates a conversation about not only are we accessing capital and raising capital as business owners, but now we're turning all of our loyal fans, our families, our friends, our customers into investors. And now we're preaching a message that's similar to what Wall Street Trapper preaches. He's like, oh, if you go into Starbucks, if you go into Target, if you go in these places, you should own shares in those companies because you should get paid when they get paid. But why don't we own our own and have our people invest in our own companies? Somebody tell Wall Street try to take his company public.
Yeah, I mean that that's it. You know what? Um, and this is what's crazy. I remember I was watching David Letterman. I'm surprised if Steve Colbert doesn't do the same thing. But David Letterman left NBC and then turned around and he started his YouTube thing he's doing, and he had some of his first guests on there was Jay-Z and a few other people and things like that. But I remember watching it one day, and Kim Kardashian was on there, and so he was basically talking to her, and he said to her, "Oh, your hair looks nice or whatever," and she said, "Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, it's mine." And he was like, kind of like, what? And she was like, yeah, well, I paid for it. And he was like, you paid for it? She said, well, not really, just a couple posts. And so when she said that, right, just a couple posts, and so I'm sitting up there looking at this, and I'm like, what? And then Dave, and you can look this up. I mean, it's Dave, Dave basically, Letterman, his show on YouTube. And he said to her, right, he said, well, what do you mean? He said, how much does a couple posts cost? And she said, well, and he was like, 400,000. And he was like 500,000. She was like, he was like two posts for that. He said, I had 25 million people watching me every night on television on NBC. And she was like, well, why would I do that? And he was like, what? Now think about it. That's 25 million people, and that's from 4 different time zones. But every night, Monday through Friday, she said, I've got 98 million followers. 98 million followers. And all she's got to do is a couple posts of some hair that she bought and she's using. She didn't even buy it. They gave it to her. Hey, I'm using this hair, and boom, it's worth over $500,000. That right there, well, I mean, we could change. We don't need Shark Tank. We could change just what we're doing here. We're like this, and just again, Sean did it the other day, telling everybody on our class on Wednesday, hey, before we get started, go ahead and send this out to a few people. Just viral marketing, and again, giving this education to folks, and they can get it right now for free. How many people are listening to this, hear it, like it, but they're not sharing it with anybody else? They're hoarding the information to themselves. Give it away. Get it out there. Let them hear about it. And it can be huge.
I like it. I think that leveraging, that's a good point. Leveraging those who command an audience and a space, because it is other people's audience, with the next step of information. Like it goes back to what I said earlier. You hear your Earn Your Leisures and you hear all these people talk about the same problem, but what is the next logical step? Who are you partnering with that's in that space that can take it further and not do it just behind the scenes? And that's a lot of what the issue also becomes, is because we making deals, but we as a global community aren't making deals. And you got to start giving people the opportunity on a larger scale. It can't just be, well, we had this one event and we did a pitch competition. Like, I'm tired of pitch competitions. Everywhere you go is a pitch competition for 10,000, for 5,000. That's no money. It's a flash pan. It's, as soon as you get that 10, it's poof, it's gone. I did the math with my wife, and I've done it with other people. The math, Tyrus, you saying $10,000 not no money. What are you gonna do with it? If you should be running $5,000 a month in ads to get any real scale, $10,000 gone. If you're paying the ad management company $2,500 to $5,000 a month just to run the ads for you, if you're paying yourself as an executive in the business like you're supposed to be, if you're paying your insurance, most businesses don't have insurance. If you're paying team members, what is $10,000 really going to do for you? Nothing.
Go get them up
what
there.
is 50 going to do? What is 100 going to do? Just like we talked to that investor that time. We were like, well, we need about 150,000. Said, for what? So you can come back in 3
Back.
months and ask me for some more money? For what? Yes, every little bit helps. Because again, I was talking to my wife about grant money that she got, and she was like, "It felt like I ain't even get that money." That's how fast it goes. You
Yeah.
need real capital. That's why when you see the news, which you should be watching, and look at the investing side of that world, that's why you see them raising 50 million, 75 million, 100 million. That's why you see those numbers, because it takes massive capital for massive growth. I don't know what Isaac Hayes III did or is doing with the $17 million he's raised, but I guarantee you, if it's building a software and putting a team around it and really trying to even tug on the coattail of Facebook, it ain't enough money.
Right.
Billions.
That 17 million be whew, it gonna be like I ain't even feel it. 17 is no money. It really isn't. I'm on Biz by Sell looking at companies they doing. I looked at a company, I think they did 8.9 million in revenue, but their EBITDA was 800,000. 10%.
Facebook is probably using 17 million a month in server just to be across the world, you know.
Gone. So we got to expand our minds around what real capital is. We got to stop chasing after, oh, if I can just get 100,000 from the bank, if I can just get 50,000 on a credit card, for what? So you can just carry the debt and then stress yourself out about having to pay that bank back every single month, and you're not doing any better, because you got to have time to run the ads, to bring the audience in, to close the audience. It takes time. Only 7% of people, 7% of people are ready to buy at any given time. So the other 93% you got to nurture over time. It might take you 3 months. It might take you 6 months to close somebody who saw your ad. What are you doing? This is why business is a long game.
I'm going to say, or remember this. Sometimes and this is the reason why it's so important to understand what we talked about, access to money or raising capital. Access to money, can you go back to that person over and over and over again with access to capital?
The bank?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
No.
After that first
No.
loan, no.
Right. You got to wait till that thing's paid off, right? So you can't go back to them over and over. And that's why I wanted to close on this, because I wanted people to understand, you know, what they always teach us, strong. You got to have a strong close, right? A strong close. So think about it. If you got access to capital, right, you can't go back to the bank. You can go to another bank, and then when they find out you got a loan, then after that, now you can't go there anymore either. But when you got an investor, guess how many times you can go back to that investor?
Especially a good one that's got
Over
some money.
and over and over and over and over. And when is the payment due?
Never.
That's the difference between access to capital and raising capital. Now, if you want to find out how to do this, go to www.capitalraisingacademy.com. Or, like Tyra said, go to webinar, www.webinar, .capital raising academy.
That's it.
And we'll teach you, you'll see our free masterclass, how we took our company public. What we did is not new. It's not impossible. It's just only 6 minority-owned companies have done it now. But when we did it back then, and it was harder, and you didn't have all the tools you have now, and there was no social media. It was 14 minority-owned public traded companies back then. Now there's only 6. You need this information that we're providing. So once again, go to capitalraisingacademy.com. Get in there. You can click on there also too. Check out our BIS sheet. If you want to talk to us, we can help you out. Book our calendar. We'll talk to you, help you out. But make sure you take the link to look at that video. And we look forward to working with you. I'm dropping.
Cal, you cooking tonight.
Hey, that's it. That's it. That's all. We out of here, good people. We will see you all next week. Thank you for joining us. Go to the site, check this out, because we got to get away from the woe is me and actually start putting ourselves out there to be successful. So we appreciate y'all for hanging in with us. We'll see you all next time.
God bless everybody.
Bye bye. Thanks now.